People always talk about marriage as if it's made of romance. Flowers, kisses, shared dreams whispered into the dark. No one talks about spreadsheets. No one talks about bank accounts. No one talks about waking up one morning and realizing you're no longer a wife. You're an angel investor with a ring. I met Daniel when we were 24. He had that kind of confidence that made you think everyone else must know something you don't. He talked about stocks, venture capital, market cycles. I barely understood half of it, but I pretended I did because he looked at me like I was worth explaining things to. I was a nurse. He was a dreamer with an undergrad degree and a mediocre job at a tech startup. He used to tease me gently. "You're too simple," he'd say, smiling against my cheek. He meant it as a compliment, I thought. Simple like reliable, simple like solid. I didn't know then that men like him don't say things casually. Every joke is groundwork. Every tease is training. When he told me he wanted an MBA, I said yes before he even finished the sentence. I worked double shifts, sold my car, cut coupons like we were starving artists. He kissed me in the kitchen one night and whispered, "One day when I'm successful, you'll never have to work again." My mother warned me. She was folding laundry on our couch, eyes narrowed over my shoulder. "Men who promise to carry you," she said, "usually expect you to walk behind them." I laughed it off. Because love makes you stupid. You don't realize it's stupid, you think it's devotion. I started tracking his expenses in a dusty blue binder. Not because I was planning anything, but because I came from a family that counted every dollar twice: rent, groceries, books, tuition, gas. Every time I sent another wire transfer, I scribbled it down in neat handwriting. Investment, MBA semester 1. I thought it sounded romantic, like I was betting on us. He didn't see me doing it. He didn't ask. He didn't thank me. He just said things like, "I'll pay you back once I'm making real money. And you're not gonna throw this in my face later, right?" I laughed. Why would I? For the first 2 years he was sweet, stressed, tired, sometimes insecure, but sweet. He'd come home with cheap takeout, drop his backpack, flop onto the couch. "You're my rock," he'd mumble, face buried in my shoulder. And I would hold him, because I believed him. Love makes you think you're building a castle together when really, you're laying bricks around yourself. Then came year 3. He stopped asking if I was tired, stopped thanking me for meals, stopped coming home early. I'd find him sitting in our apartment with his laptop open, a glass of whiskey sweating next to him, typing furiously like the world owed him something and was late delivering it. The joke started again. "You wouldn't get it," when I asked about accounting classes. "You're good at practical things." When I asked if I could help with something. "You're the heart, I'm the brain." When I asked if he thought the workload was fair. I didn't argue. I had never been trained to argue. All the women in my family were raised on the same recipe: be gentle, be patient, be indispensable, be quiet. So I kept paying. Semester 4, books, travel, housing near campus. Every payment had my signature. Every signature was a seed. I didn't know it then, but I was planting an entire forest. The day he graduated, he didn't even look at me during the ceremony. He was shaking hands with professors, smiling at classmates, adjusting his tie. I stood in the crowd, holding my phone like a stranger. When he finally walked over, he didn't hug me. He just said, "You should have worn something nicer. This is an important day." I remember staring down at my dress, pale blue, simple, unpretentious, my favorite. He didn't notice the way my hands shook. He was too busy scanning the room for someone more valuable to talk to. On the car ride home, he said something casually, his eyes still scrolling through his thoughts. "You know, you're too simple for the life I'm building." Not angry, not cruel, just factual, like he was explaining gravity, like I should have known all along. I swallowed it, because the worst pain isn't when someone screams at you, it's when they dismiss you with a smile. That night, he didn't come to bed. I found him asleep on the couch, laptop open, a folder labeled Networking Prospects. I stood there in the dark and realized something. He didn't see me as a partner, he saw me as a stepping stone, and stepping stones are meant to be walked on. When he filed for divorce 5 months later, he didn't even pretend to be heartbroken. He came into the living room holding the papers like a waiter delivering a bill. "I've grown," he said, "and I don't want to resent you for holding me back." Holding him back. Me. The woman who paid every bill, every tuition, every ounce of his ambition. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Okay, just that. No tears, no pleading, no fireworks," because I had already learned something he didn't know yet. Emotion makes noise, power is silent, and I had been training for 4 years. Divorce courts are designed like waiting rooms at a hospital. No one wants to be there, no one wants to look anyone in the eye, and everyone pretends to be stronger than they are. I arrived early. Not because I was nervous, but because I knew he would arrive late, the way people who think they're untouchable always do. If he was the storm, I wanted to be the ground it hit first. I wore a cream blazer. Not flashy, not desperate. A color that whispers power to anyone who understands it. I brought only 3 things. Untransparent folder, a small notebook, and a calm I waited 4 years to earn. He walked in exactly 7 minutes past the start time, checking his watch like the court was inconveniencing him. He looked different now. The MBA had given him posture. He held his shoulders like he was carrying a briefcase of destiny. He didn't look at me. He scanned for the judge, for authority, for someone important enough to acknowledge him. When he finally saw me, his eyebrows lifted with casual amusement. "You're really wearing that?" He chuckled. "No lawyer?" I smiled. Not softly, the kind of smile you give someone who has no idea they've already lost. "I don't need a lawyer," I said. He blinked. People like him don't understand that paperwork is louder than any attorney. We sat. The judge, a tired man with thinning hair, read from the file in front of him. "So husband is filing for divorce. Claims the marriage has become, quote, a misalignment of ambition." He read it with zero emotion. Just another Wednesday, another stack of broken promises. Daniel straightened his tie. "Yes, Your Honor, our goals are no longer compatible. Not I grew apart from her. Not I hurt her. Not I am ungrateful. Just a polite obituary for the usefulness of his wife." The judge turned to me. "And Mrs. Clarkson, do you contest the divorce?" "No, Your Honor." I said it smoothly, like I had been practicing the line in the mirror long enough to make it a prayer. The judge nodded. "Then we'll move on to the matter of spousal support and asset division." Daniel lifted a hand, the way CEOs interrupt interns. "Your Honor, I'm not requesting spousal support. I already signed the prenup stating that we each walk away with what we came with. I just want this finalized." He glanced at me sideways, victorious, as if we were in a boardroom and he'd just closed a deal. The judge asked the obvious question. "Mrs. Clarkson, is this accurate? You signed a prenuptial agreement prior to marriage." "Yes," I said. Then gently, "I also signed a revision." Daniel frowned. "What revision?" There was no. I reached into my bag and pulled out the transparent folder. It made a soft sound when it slid across the bench, the sound of a trap closing. Inside were tuition statements, flight confirmations, textbooks orders, rent payments, interest charges, and every semester's balance sheet, each labeled in my neat handwriting. Investment, MBA Year 1, Semester 1. Investment, MBA Year 1, Semester 2. Investment, MBA Year 2, and so on. The judge squinted down at the pages. "What am I looking at?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rush. I didn't tremble. "You're looking at 4 years of educational investment, Your Honor," I said, "all paid by me, under my name, at the request of my husband. The prenup revision states that any financial investments made toward his professional qualifications must be returned at divorce, with interest." The judge's brow creased. "Interest?" Daniel laughed, a short, confident bark like I had just told a joke at a dinner party. "You're kidding. That was never. You signed it," I said. He froze. Not a dramatic freeze, not theatrical, just the sudden stillness of a man who has been hit by a car he never saw. "Page 3, I added calmly. "Last paragraph. Your signature in blue ink." The judge flipped the pages slowly, then stopped. His eyes scanned the text. It read, "Any financial contributions made toward husband's professional academic advancement shall be considered investment capital and must be restored to wife upon dissolution of marriage, including compounded interest at 8% annually." The courtroom went silent. The kind of silence that isn't empty, the kind that swells like oxygen before a fire. Daniel whispered, "I don't remember signing that." Of course he didn't. He signed it on the night he told me I didn't understand the business world. He was drunk on ambition, bored of my quiet loyalty, and eager to make himself look generous. He slid the pen across the page and said, "Fine, if it makes you feel secure, go ahead." He didn't even read it. He just wanted me to stop nagging him about transparency. He was marrying an investor. Why would his golden future ever backfire? Back then, I filed the revision with quiet diligence. The way a surgeon marks an incision line. Not revenge. Preparation. The judge cleared his throat. "So you're asking for reimbursement?" "No, Your Honor," I said. "I'm asking for investment return." I gestured to the paperwork, principal, interest, and penalties for late payment. Daniel swallowed audibly. "How much?" I met his eyes for the first time in months. $217,000. His face drained of color. It wasn't that much." "It was," I said. I itemized. I slid another sheet forward. A spreadsheet. Timestamps. Transaction IDs. Digital receipts. Check images. Wire confirmations. Each number undeniable. In marriage, I was invisible. In accounting, I was God. He turned to the judge, desperate. "This is insane. She's exaggerating. She paid for school because she wanted to. It was for us. The judge didn't even look at him. He simply said, "It appears she paid for your career. You paid for nothing." Daniel shook his head, hands trembling. "We were supposed to be a team." I leaned back in my chair. "We were," I said, "and I carried the weight. Teams don't work when only one person plays." The judge tapped his pen against the desk. "Mr. Clarkson, this agreement is legal and binding. You signed it. You benefited from it." Daniel's mouth opened and closed, a fish drowning on dry land. I watched him struggle, not with joy, not with cruelty, with closure, because the moment I paid his tuition, I stopped being his wife. I became his investor, and investors get their returns. There is a particular expression people wear when the universe starts cashing in their arrogance. It isn't anger, it isn't sadness, it's disbelief. A childlike confusion, like someone moved the furniture in a room they thought they built. That was his face when the judge announced the ruling. Mr. Clarkson will reimburse the documented total educational investment plus interest accrued over 4 years, plus legal fees for enforcement if payment is delayed. He blinked once, twice. Then the panic arrived like a late bus. "Your Honor, I don't have that liquid right now. My assets are..." The judge raised a hand, politely cutting the sentence at its throat. "You have 30 days. 30 days. It sounded so gentle, like he was being given a chore. Meanwhile, I knew every decimal of the number sitting in front of him. I had recited it until my eyes blurred, until I could feel it in my bones. 217 px and 388 pulse 46. Every cent had weight, every semester had teeth. When court adjourned, he didn't rush toward me. He didn't scream. He didn't threaten. He simply sat down in the empty row behind ours, staring at the polished courtroom floor like it might give him answers. I walked past him at a measured pace, every step deliberate. He reached out and caught my wrist. Not aggressively, not violently, like a man who was suddenly drowning, and remembered who used to pull him to shore. "You don't mean this," he whispered. Not an apology. Not regret, just the hope that my love might still be stronger than his ego. I looked down at his hand. For years I would have given it everything. Now it was simply a memory. "I meant every tuition payment," I said, "and every meal, and every hour I spent working double shifts so you could chase your dreams. You're just meeting the invoice." He flinched. Not from volume, from clarity. There is no scream louder than logic. He let go. It would be dramatic to say I walked out of that courthouse feeling triumphant. I didn't. I felt tired, like a soldier coming home. My mother was waiting outside in the car. She always wore perfume that smelled like citrus, sharp, fresh, alive. That day it cut through the cold air like sunlight. "Did he fight?" she asked. "Only at the end," I said. She nodded once, as if she'd already seen this whole thing play out long before I did. Then she handed me a hot chocolate. Not champagne, not flowers, just warmth. Victory should never burn your throat. He tried to negotiate. Of course he did. First came the text. "We don't have to do this in a hostile way." I ignored it. Then came the call. "We can reach a private settlement." I didn't pick up. Then an email. A spreadsheet attachment, like he was trying to lecture me one last time. "If we remove the interest and treat it like a loan." I didn't respond. He didn't understand something fundamental. He thought he was bargaining with the woman who loved him, not the woman who learned how to add. The silence broke him faster than the debt. When the first wire transfer landed in my account, I stared at the notification and laughed. Not a cruel laugh, one of those strange, breathless laughs you can't control, like you're hearing the punchline to a joke you've been sitting through for 4 years. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like rent being paid on a home someone tried to squat in. What I did next surprised everyone. I didn't buy a designer bag. I didn't go to Bali. I didn't drown myself in self-help books or join a gym to glow up. I bought silence. I rented a tiny studio apartment overlooking the river. Wood floors, cream curtains, a kitchen so small that cooking felt like meditation. I bought a set of white mugs, all identical because I didn't want to look at mismatched things anymore. I bought a desk. Not for him, not for us, not for the future we were supposed to share. A desk for me. I enrolled in a financial analysis course. Not for a degree, not for prestige, just to understand the language men like him used to dismiss me. The professor looked at our class of 25 and said, "Never invest in something you don't understand." The entire room nodded. I smiled. 6 months passed. He paid every installment on time. Fear is a better motivator than love ever was. He asked for one final meeting. A coffee shop near the court. Neutral territory. I wore the same cream blazer from the divorce hearing. He arrived in a suit. Too expensive for a man drowning in debt. He probably bought it before the fall, back when he thought the world was an elevator built just for him. He stirred his drink like he was trying to hypnotize the foam. "I just want closure," he said. I let him talk. He listed reasons why he changed. Career demands, stress, pressure, identity. Every word tiptoed around accountability like it was a hot stove. When he finished, he leaned back and asked, "So what do you think?" I answered the only honest way possible. "I don't." He looked up, startled. "You don't think about me?" "No," I said. "You're a line item. I paid what you cost. The rest isn't my concern." He stared at me like I had spoken in another language. And maybe I had. The language of equal footing. The language of women who learned to stop apologizing for existing. The language of return on investment. He finally whispered, "I never thought you'd be the one to hurt me." I lifted my cup. "I wasn't. You just built a future without me and forgot to lock the door." When I left, I didn't look back. People imagine revenge like a fire. Loud, wild, raging. But real revenge is quiet. It's a hand releasing a rope, while the other person is still climbing. And as they fall, you realize something beautiful. You don't even hate them. You simply outgrew them. Freedom does not arrive the way people imagine it. It doesn't burst through the door screaming, "You're saved." It comes quietly, like a late-night breeze, like the first sip of coffee before sunrise, like waking up and realizing you don't have to explain yourself to anyone anymore. That's how it happened for me. Not with fireworks, not with revenge, just silence. A better kind of silence than the one I lived with him, the kind that feels like breathing for the first time. The first night I slept alone. My studio apartment had creaky floors. The radiator groaned like an old man. The mattress was too firm. But I slept like a child. I woke up at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. No guilt, no apology waiting in my inbox, no man tapping a watch at me like I was late to my own life. I sat by the window watching the river bend around the city, and I felt something strange in my chest. Peace. It wasn't loud. It wasn't triumphant. Just steady, like the earth. I chose a life that didn't need to impress anyone. I stopped dyeing my hair to look professional, stopped wearing heels because they made me taller than him, stopped buying dresses that softened me so I wouldn't intimidate him in public. I wore what I wanted: loose sweaters, clean linen, simple gold jewelry. I didn't need to prove I was soft anymore. I didn't need to perform humility. I simply was. I went to work. I came home. I cooked meals that made my apartment smell like rosemary and garlic. I sat on the floor and read books that weren't about how to love a man better. I learned not to apologize for eating breakfast late, or sleeping in, or turning off my phone. People think healing is dramatic. They wait for tears, breakdowns, grand speeches. But healing is boring. It's fragile. It's slow. It's a plant you water in silence and confidence. He tried to come back into my life in small ways. Not romantically, just in the way men try to salvage their image. A text here: "I hope we can be civil." A voicemail there: "I still want to respect you. Respect me." After years of making me feel like a placeholder. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I finally learned something. Closure is not a gift someone gives you. It's a door you close yourself. And I had already closed mine. People started asking questions: coworkers, old friends, even cousins. "So what happened between you two?" I told them the truth, delivered with the same tone I used in court. "I'm okay. He's not my problem anymore." They always blinked, waiting for more. They wanted drama. They wanted bitterness. I gave them neither. Some people wear their trauma like a badge. I decided to wear mine like sunscreen. Invisible, protective, absorbed into my skin, keeping the worst things from burning me again. My mother came to visit. She arrived unannounced, holding grocery bags like she was moving in for the weekend. She looked around the apartment at the white mugs, the plant I hadn't killed yet, the tiny desk near the window. "It suits you," she said. "It's small," I told her. She shrugged. "Small things grow." I made tea. We sat on the floor, legs crossed, because I hadn't bought a dining table yet. We didn't talk about him. We didn't talk about the court. We talked about where she bought her new boots, and whether I should try yoga, and whether my landlord would let me paint the walls. At some point, she reached out and touched my wrist. The same wrist he once gripped in desperation. "You're not done, you know," she murmured. "Done with what?" "Healing," she said. "It comes in waves. Some are small, some will knock you flat." I leaned my head on her shoulder. "I'm not afraid of drowning anymore." She laughed softly and kissed the top of my head. "You're not drowning," she said. "You're finally learning how to swim." The last time he contacted me, it was an email. Long, glassy, polished. He talked about how hard the repayment schedule was, about how he was in a tough place, about how my silence was cold. He ended with, "I hope one day you'll understand why I had to grow beyond you." I drafted a reply. Not to send, just to purge. I did understand. I just chose to grow past you. But I didn't send it, because I didn't need him to read my thoughts anymore. He was no longer the audience. He was a footnote. The real return on investment. One evening, I sat at my desk, the same one I bought after the divorce, and I opened a new document. I started listing the things I had invested in that actually paid off. My mother, my friends, my own education, therapy, sleep, peace, myself. That list was worth more than any degree, more than any business school. It was worth something he never understood. Life lived on my terms. And then came the moment people mistake for revenge. I saw him months later. By coincidence, he was leaving a networking event. Brand new suit, expensive watch, eyes glazed with the exhaustion of perpetual self-promotion. He saw me across the street, paused, tried to wave. I smiled politely, not with triumph, not with cruelty. Just one of those smiles you give someone you met once at a hotel lobby. Vague recognition, no attachment. His shoulders slumped, as if he suddenly realized the truth. He was a chapter. I was the book. Because here's what no one tells you about women like me. We don't seek revenge. We don't go looking for war. We don't burn bridges. We simply stop showing up to the places where we were asked to kneel. And when the world keeps spinning, we watch the people who underestimated us try to keep their balance without us there to steady them. That's not revenge. That's return on investment. Not in dollars, not in degrees, but in becoming someone who can never again be bought.